There's lots of talk about Mikel Arteta potentially becoming next Arsenal manager, so it's a great time to catch up with someone who's witnessed him over the past 3.5 seasons. Manchester City fan Steven McInerney, aka Esteemed Company. We're heading to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, so please hit subscribe if you haven't already to help us get there. Steven, on Arteta's future, Guardiola said, hopefully he can stay with us this season and the next one, as long as possible in this club. That would be my dream, but Mikel has his own life and I will never say what he has to do. Would you be disappointed to lose Mikel Arteta to Arsenal at any point this season, Steven?
Arteta has allegedly, we only know what the managers say, but Pep's always said that Arteta's been a really big influence on the dressing room and in general his adaptation to the Premier League, because he brought in knowledge, very recent knowledge, because he was only playing obviously a little bit before he retired and joined Manchester City's kind of coaching staff. And Pep's always cited him as someone who's understood the players a lot. We've seen all those clips going around social media where he's been talking to Fernandinho about body shape and Sterling and all that kind of stuff. And apparently he's seen as a really big cog in this current Guardiola setup. So yeah, of course, like anyone who's been involved in the success that City have had over the past few years, it'd be a massive loss, 100%. Having said that, I think we all kind of know at some point he is going to move on. It's inevitable. Weirdly, I'm not sure if he'll ever be Manchester City manager anyway. I don't know. It's just a kind of instinct. But it's undeniable that if he leaves, there will be a bit of a void that we have to fill. There's some rumours that maybe Dominic Torrent will come back from New York City, and he was obviously Pep absolutely loves that guy. But Arteta, I'm sure will make a very good manager because he's got the quality, the players respect him, and he understands the Premier League. So it could happen. We'd be disappointed, definitely. Is he replaceable? Probably, though. That's the thing.
The interesting side, of course, the quotes about him talking to Raheem Sterling and him moving him to that right-hand side and saying that he doesn't need to take a touch, he can directly run at goal. We've seen Raheem Sterling really evolve as a player, and I think Pep and Arteta deserve a lot of credit there. So losing one of those players that have really worked on a player-to-player basis could hurt Manchester City.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I guess football is a lot about routine and rhythm on the training ground, because you do build up those bonds, and the best managers and the best coaches will have that one-to-one connection with players, and it comes from a position of trust. I can imagine it's quite hard to sometimes earn the trust of a bunch of multi-million-pound footballers, because they have egos, like we all do as a young person as well. But them particular, they have smoke blunt their arse all day, told them the best thing in the world. So you need to get a manager or a coach who actually can get through to them. And having someone like Arteta, for example, who once again, he's only young, he genuinely understands the Premier League. He's probably played around the same time as some of these players. Well, he has, in fact. That makes a difference, because there's a mutual respect kind of thing there. And he carries a name as well. He's also a leader. He's captain clubs. We all know that. And
he played in Glasgow for a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. So that teaches you a lot, doesn't it? In general.
It really does.
Arteta is obviously a very big part of Manchester City. Like, it'll be a blow, because I think the players will miss that kind of one-to-one contact. And I guess Sterling is probably the biggest beneficiary. He's the most high-profile one anyway. And I think there's little things as well, like Kyle Walker. I presume he's been a big impact on him, because Kyle Walker's of Spurs is different to Kyle Walker at Manchester City. He was just a full-on attacking, overlapping fullback, where he's improved technically. He's still not I'm not saying he's Dani Alves technically, but he's vastly better than he was, in my humble opinion. He's so much more comfortable coming into midfield. He's so much more comfortable on the ball, and he plays a very different role at Manchester City than he did there. And people like Arteta, they're a big part of that process. So they'll miss him. The players will miss him if he does go.
Definitely, not only that player development of both, he's talking Kyle Walker potentially, looking at definitely Raheem Sterling, but more from Guardiola. He asked if Arteta could take over before if Guardiola does leave Manchester City, and his answers were yes, definitely. He's able to do that. How do you feel about him being the next Manchester City manager?
Well, we've got a manager who literally did that at one point, so I can't be too cynical about that idea, and I do believe there's always going to be you got to play the kids at some point. Arteta essentially is that in terms of managers. There are rumours actually, apparently, if he does stay around next season, that he'll be, which I find strange, but I guess it's part of a growing trend of football, that he'll be given the cup games to take control of. And I think, I'm not sure, someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think Klopp's indicates something similar with some of his coaches at some point as well. And I think City are starting to do this thing, and I've noticed it recently. They're almost like doing like this. They got this City Football Group project, and they've got this kind of lone army like Chelsea done. I think they're starting to do it with managers as well. We've got Dominic Torrent out at New York, and Patrick Vieira had a kind of like a trial kind of spell at New York as well. Now we've got apparently like Giovanni von Bronckhorst on an internship. That was the words they used, you know. So we've got a man who's actually been successful over in the Netherlands, now learning in close quarters to Manchester City. So we've got basically a bunch of young coaches like Arteta and maybe Van Bronckhorst in our network in general. And the idea is that they can learn around, obviously, the way that Manchester City won. And Arteta's in that scholarship, I guess, really. He's in there for a reason because they see him as a potentially great coach. So he could take over. He definitely could take over. And I'm almost certain he's on that list with many other people. Do I think he will? Probably not, weirdly. It's quite just an instinct thing.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. You mentioned the sort of the group, and it is a little bit like Red Bull, where you have someone like Jesse March who coaches Red Bull New York, and then now he's at Salzburg, and probably will, if Nagelsmann ever leaves Leipzig, will follow that trend.
Yeah, they've got like a route, haven't they?
They've got a route to get from A to B. You look at someone like Rose, now Gladbach, same thing. Youth team at Salzburg, first team at Salzburg, now Bundesliga, obviously not outside the Red Bull model. So a bit of a curveball. Instead of Arteta taking over Manchester City, what about someone like an Everton, one of his old clubs?
I mean, that must be so attractive for Everton for many reasons, because he's working. Arteta's working closely, and regardless of your football allegiance, he's working with one of the greatest managers the game's ever seen. That's just a thing. That's what Pep is, and it's impossible for Arteta to deny that emotional connection to Everton. He loves that club. The Everton fans, they absolutely love him as well. And really, at the moment, Everton are kind of just thrashing around for some kind of identity, and Arteta would obviously would at least very much attempt to bring in a style of football that is attractive. And obviously Everton, I think, want to be that club. They spend money on attacking players a lot, They want to play that way. They want to have a style that I guess is attractive in the modern era. And it also ticks boxes, it's Arteta. It's Everton fan. So I can see him being tempted by that. I still think the most likely thing is that he'll stay around, but I think he's got basically he's in a good situation. He's in a very good situation. He can't really lose, I don't think, in terms of, you never know how it's going to plan out, but his next step, any of those next steps are very logical for him. If he went to Arsenal or Everton, it'd be logical. If he stayed at Manchester City and learned from another year, it'd be logical. So it's a very good situation to be in. And Everton, they'll definitely want him. And I think if he offered himself the job, I think they'd take him in a heartbeat.
Let's take a look at how Arteta could actually set up Arsenal. Bearing in mind that friend of the channel, Sam Lee, said he is said to be one of the very few people around the club to be on the same wavelength as Guardiola when it comes to football. Stephen, we've got an Arsenal 11 on screen right now.
We do indeed.
How would he Arteta it? Or how would we move this to more of a Guardiola, Arteta style of football, considering the players we have on screen?
We've got essentially... he's got two kind of holding there. He's got two pivots as opposed to like the 3-8 thing you got. I would touch it and realise it's not actually a touchscreen thing. But in general, so I think we see Xhaka being a little bit deeper, kind of like what Gundogan does, but we can substitute people, can't we? Yep. So I presume, actually, bin off Xhaka, because he's Guendouzi is the immediate obvious thing. Because to be honest, he reminds me a lot of Fernandinho as well. That kind of complete box-to-box player. And I think Arteta would love someone like him with a little bit of energy, because I think he'd really want this Arsenal team to have a lot of intensity. Because it's quite a young side, really, when you look through it. I think, so you've got Guendouzi there. Then
Bellerin probably comes in.
Yeah, Bellerin would definitely be. He's ex-Barcelona as well, so he understands that thing. I think even Pep would love someone like Bellerin. You have the chance to work with him, so that makes a lot of sense. And we kind of got to get that kind of false 8 kind of thing. For me, I don't think Ozil has the energy to be effective in that kind of system. He's very much like, the reason Mourinho gets the best out of someone like Ozil is because obviously the ball goes through him. But I think, I presume Arteta would want these players to work in the way that Guardiola wants him. So you'd need someone a little bit more legs, maybe like Ceballos or something like that. We were saying before, someone like maybe Nelson could do a job or something like that. Potentially. Torreira, he's a good player, but I wonder if he's the one to kind of challenge Guendouzi more than... Because it's tough for him to get into the system, isn't it? Because it's not the kind of system really where you need two more defensive minded. So I mean, he's a quality player, but I think it might be difficult unless he can try and like reinvent himself a little bit to kind of be aggressive.
A fullback or a centre back, maybe. That maybe suit.
You never know, but I mean, then through the middle, maybe get Lacazette kind of doing kind of slightly false 9 kind of thing, or you could maybe get. I think Aubameyang, I think, would be put out wide, I reckon, because he's quite effective from out wide. He scores goals. Pepe, I can see Pepe playing, definitely. I can see actually being probably getting a little bit confident as well, because we know what he's done with Sterling as well, so that would make a lot of sense.
So you could even see that the other side of it, it's having it the other way around, where you actually may have a right footer on the right hand side, and left foot on the left hand side.
Well, they've definitely got the fullbacks to do that as well. Obviously, Eternity and Bellerin are both very attacking. So, I mean, we saw under Guardiola, we were seeing at the best actually when we had Sane and Sterling keeping a lot of width, and then we saw Walker and it was Zinchenko or Delph or whatever playing quite central. And these fullbacks,
so making that move inside to that central area.
But I think though the strengths of these two guys is they're much more attackingly capable than I would say for example Zinchenko and Delph, for example. So maybe it would be a situation where they would play inverted wingers, because these guys can get forward. And I do think he'll do this kind of one holding midfielder thing, and then the two kind of false eights, as they call it. And I think we would see a lot more aggressive Arsenal. And I honestly think it'd be better. We'd see obviously a signing too. Maybe we'd see that young lad come back in from say Etienne as well.
Saliba. I think it'd be important. I think the big thing, one of the big concerns, obviously, is that centre back for Arsenal. They're absolutely woeful. Playing out the back, they're really bad as well. They seem to lose the ball in a real important area. But I think with someone like Guendouzi, ex-PSG, has a lot of potential as a player in that defensive midfield role. You could see potentially him drop in, fullbacks pushing on. There's a lot of movement
as well,
potential.
Which is notable.
He always seems to do well in the bigger games where he's got to be up for it. Tottenham, he always plays well. City always plays well. But I think it is central midfield. Ceballos, is he good enough for the Premier League? Is he good enough for Arsenal?
It's there, isn't it? I feel like to get like a Pep system to work, and that's what we presume that's what Arteta wanted to do. But he's going to have to, based on these 3-8s, and Manchester City at the very best had David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne, which are phenomenally good. And then we had someone like Bernardo Silva stepping into it. So that's the quality that Arsenal haven't currently got there. Like Willock and Nelson are very good players, but I think even the most diehard of Arsenal fans would admit they're nowhere near that level currently. So we need someone who can understand that, and that's why I think it's probably difficult for the likes of Xhaka. Like Xhaka could maybe have a Gundogan kind of deep sitting. Xhaka's a good passer, to be fair. You always see him at the top of like the passing stats. He's very good at the recycling possession kind of thing. But I think we have to see a lot more from Xhaka, a lot more creatively, a lot more going forward. And I've got a feeling he could be one of the big kind of casualties. And also, there's questions about his attitude in general, that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans wouldn't be sad to see him go. So.
No, again, a real curveball. Could see Ozil through the middle. Maybe it's a false nine.
That would
full be Pep Guardiola, that would be. But then, is that going to be what Mikel Arteta likes with his Arsenal team?
I can't see it. I think Lacazette, he's a goal scorer. Martinelli looks really promising. He's a goal scorer, and I think you just want a goal scorer, basically. I think it'd be too risky for first season. Maybe it'd wait for Arteta to try and make a name for himself. But I think that's potentially, if you get the right players in the system, and maybe obviously not Xhaka there or whatever, but I think that's potentially a much more interesting team. It just depends, obviously, if you can get the players to do what he wants them to do, but that's a stronger Arsenal, I think.
I think that's it. Well, guys, thanks for watching on the Squawka YouTube channel. Subscribe if you are new, and of course, check out Esteemed Company on YouTube. His link will be in the description below, so go and give that a follow and a subscribe if you haven't already. Could you see him managing Arsenal, Everton, or even Manchester City? Let us know in the comments below. I want to see you in there, Arsenal fans. But I've been Statman Dave. This has been Steven McInerney, and we will see you next time on Squawka.